I had a version of this review written out in my head as I started Fantasy Life's long-awaited sequel, Fantasy Life I, on Nintendo Switch. It's a good enough follow-up that captures enough of the fun gameplay loops of the original 3DS game, but it's hampered by the technical limitations of the Nintendo Switch. Then publisher Level 5 announced a Switch 2 upgrade, and that drove me to a much more ideal Fantasy Life experience. Running much better on Nintendo's newest hardware, Fantasy Life I is an incredibly engrossing game that only stumbles because of the sheer scope and size of everything it's trying to bring together. For the uninitiated, Fantasy Life is a self-proclaimed slow life RPG. I think the term is silly jargon, but it does kind of sum it up. This is an RPG, complete with level ups, party members, and lots of loot. But it's also sort of a farm sim. You start off with access to 12 different lives, aka job classes, that are split into 3 different groups: combat, gathering, and crafting. Everything works in harmony, as to best utilize all the classes, you need to work together. You gather items by chopping down trees or mining rocks. You can then hop over to a workbench and don your blacksmith hat to create weapons and armor via crafting. Then you can equip those weapons to be better prepared against enemies wielding a sword, bow, or magic wand. To start, you have to choose a life. From there, you could in theory just rock that job all by itself, but at least to me, the game is optimally played by starting off all the 12 jobs in tandem at the outset. Leveling up the jobs requires completing specific quests, and the quests are usually running alongside story areas. I had fun bouncing between lives and managing all of their progress at once, but the game can slow down to a crawl whether you're trying to manage all 12 jobs at once or just piecemeal doing them one by one later in the story. That speaks to what I said near the start, where the game kind of trips up because it's gigantic. I touched on the 12 lives in the story, and those are huge parts of the game, very foundational. Additionally, you have a whole town you build that features villagers, houses, and even a procedurally generated dungeon. But that's not all. An entire Breath of the Wild inspired overworld is inexplicably also in the game, complete with towers that unlock parts of the map for you to see, and a handful of puzzle and combat shrines. The wild thing about this area, called Ginormosia, I think that's the first time I said that out loud, is that it's introduced early in the story and then just kind of never really referenced again until the late game. You can go there if you want to after it's introduced, and it's fun to mess around, and it can be an easier way to build up a life or clean up some quests. I've come across some really fun little secrets throughout it, but it's just so disconnected from everything else that it feels like it's borderline from a different attempt at the game. Which, as an aside, is probably true to an extent, since Level 5 has publicly stated that this game wasn't coming together about like a year or so ago, and they had to fully reinvent it, and that involved throwing out stuff that they had before, but maybe they didn't, and maybe that's Ginormosia. Second time I'm saying it, still probably didn't get it right. Anyway, it's easy to get overwhelmed by all there is to do in Fantasy Life I had the most fun when I just followed what I was enjoying, even if it usually left some aspects of the game in the dust. Like, for example, decorating my house, and I didn't really mess with that all that much. I had a lot of fun chopping down trees. The sequel has a much more action-packed story, especially in the very wordy intro. The narrative works best as a background element that occasionally dips into parodies. Zelda-esque shrines are shiny pieces of boop. There's an extended bit with a Deku Tree-like character who sings and has a sore throat. It's largely cute and funny as long as it gets out of its own way. The original game did the awesome Dragon Quest thing where it strung together a series of vignettes, and this one does roughly the same. An element from the 3DS game that I loved was how, even if you were defeating enemies in the combat jobs, everything was always just some kind of silly misunderstanding, like no one was really truly evil. That monster wasn't mean, he just had a headache. The sequel made me concerned it was going to go in the opposite direction, but thankfully it doesn't fully lose touch with that antithetical video game theme that I liked so much in the 3DS version. Combat is relatively simplistic, but each of the 4 classes feels different and unique enough. Paladin mixes quicker sword swings with shield parries, while Mercenary makes you a big lumbering menace with a giant sword. Archer is a quick little ranged fella. while the Magician turned into my mana-wielding powerhouse over time. The gathering and crafting can fall into repetition, since they're all similar in execution, but some of the nuanced differences between, like say, farming and fishing help smooth out the overall grind of all of the classes together. Multiplayer does exist for this game, but it's not the main draw for me by far. Locally, a friend can hop in and control your little partner Trip in a glorified Wii-era sidekick mode where the second player can't really do that much. For the online of up to 4 players, you can't do anything with the story. It's best used for messing around the giant open world stuff for the proc-gen dungeons in your village. Even there, you can't access the towers or shrines in Ginormosia. It's a limited experience, though the developer did say that they're making tweaks to it, so maybe it'll be a little bit better in the future. I was honestly very nervous for Fantasy Life I because I truly loved the 3DS original, and was not that optimistic that level 5 could capture the same magic more than a decade later. For the most part, they kinda did it. This has the addictive gameplay loop of completing quests and furthering your lives in tandem. This has the seemingly endless parade of adorable touches filled with cute writing. In a way, even the ambitious scope that threatens to sometime take down the whole thing is reminiscent of the original and the era that its developer Level 5 was going through with the success of Professor Layton and Yokai Watch. If Fantasy Life I is representative of what they're going to be doing going forward with the likes of Professor Layton, I'm becoming more and more hopeful that they'll be able to reach their old heights. Fantasy Life I is enjoyable even with its occasional slip-ups. I'm happy to be back juggling my multiple jobs of angler, paladin, blacksmith, and artist. It's a real fun time, and I hope, if you're interested, you go check it out. And then if you just have Switch 1, like, it's still good there, it just runs a little poorly. Would recommend both versions, though.
This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.